I'll be right back.
Good ones. Well, there should be one. There should be one.
What about, how are we going to open the
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Finance Advisory Appropriation Committee, Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners. First order of business, rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The purpose of this meeting is to do a spring warrant review and FY17 budget discussion, but at this time I'll turn it over to the chair of the FAA for their acceptance of their minutes.
thank you. Acceptance of our minutes from our 4/11/16 meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Turn it back over to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
This time I'll defer to the town administrator to begin the discussion on the warrant review.
Does everyone have a copy of the warrant articles in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is just go through them one at a time and respond to any questions that you have and provide you with some background information.
Can I ask a question before we go in terms of expediting procedure?
Yes, whatever your preferences, sir, of course.
Can we have the article read or summarized, and then see if anybody wants to put a hold on either the FAA or the Board of Selectmen, whether it's a hold for information or a hold for a concern about the amount or whatever the case might be? Would that be all right, Mr. Chairman?
Yep. So the first article is to hear board and committee reports. It's a routine article. Article number 2 is to hear and act on recommendations of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Appropriations Advisory Committee. Again, a routine article. Article 3, to reauthorize various revolving accounts under state law. The town has to bring before town meeting annually the establishment and setting a dollar amount for each revolving fund. These amounts, the accounts are all previously established by prior vote of town meeting, and the dollar amounts are consistent with what has been done in the past. Questions? Article 4 is an article submitted by the Treasurer Collector. It's a new article, and it establishes Mass General Law allows cities and towns to establish a tax title revolving account, which allows the treasurer to expend monies from tax foreclosures for purposes of legal fees. So presently, there's no mechanism for the town to, absent an appropriation, the town to provide money to provide legal fees to assist in the foreclosure of property where taxes haven't been paid. And this allows the opportunity to expend up to $75,000 under the authority of the treasurer.
Hold.
Article 5 is a routine article. It's unpaid bills of a prior year. And we have $10,772.58, which have been submitted. The actual source of funds of these needs to be determined. Article number 6. Article number 6 is to basically transfer out unexpended balances in various old borrowings. They total $8,938.16. And the proposed use of it would be to go toward the town's snow deficit.
Mr. Chair, can I put a hold on Article 5, please?
5 or 6?
5.
unpaid bills?
Yep, just a question.
Article 7 is a routine article. It provides funding for anticipated shortfalls in the current fiscal year. And you can see that they are listed out here. $40,000, excuse me, that amount, it needs to be corrected. That amount is, has been changed. That was for the pay down on the town's ambulance first payment for the ambulance remount. And the Capital Improvement Planning Committee voted to pay interest only, so that amount will need to be changed from $40,833 to $1,100. And the other items that are listed here are other items that we need to have borrowings and pay down monies for. Article 8 is an article submitted by the Board of Assessors. It's to provide the sum of $23,000 for a triennial recertification of real estate and personal property. Typically, this article is deferred until the fall town meeting, and I spoke with Lisa Berg, and she indicates that the assessors have no problem in doing so.
Hold just for one question when we're done, real quick.
On 8?
Yep.
Article 9 is an article that was looking to reestablish some of the language that previously existed in the town's personnel bylaw concerning sick leave buyback. I would note that the Personnel Board did meet last week, and as part of the meeting last week, they decided to not submit for this town meeting Article number 9.
So this article will be withdrawn or passed over?
Passed over.
Okay.
I think it requires further study. Article 10 is the operating budget, and if you allow me, we can take that up separately. I think that's more than a couple second introduction. Article 11 is a change in the town's dog bylaw, and it was requested by the Council on Aging. And presently, as you know, there's a licensing fee involving dogs in town, and a number of the senior citizens have objected to the fee. And since the original article was established in the form of a bylaw saying that dogs are subject to, I think it's a $20 fee, this would exempt persons who are 70 years and older from the licensing fee for their first or second dog. Article number 12. Article 12 is providing for money to purchase fire department gear, and the total is $18,879. Article 13 is similar to what I mentioned to you before, involving the monies that are needed to pay down the interest on the ambulance. And what we will do is we will consolidate Article 7 and 13 into a single article. And I'm suggesting the language in Article number 13 will provide for what we need. And the amount, again, is $1,100 for interest only. Article 14. Article 14 is a Board of Selectmen's article. It creates a road betterment bylaw. And the purpose of the road betterment bylaw is to allow persons who live on a private road to have that road improved through paving and or drainage. The cost of the betterment or the cost of the work would be 100% assumed by the persons who live on the road that is improved. The article allows the individuals who want to have their roads improved to do improvements to the extent that the road could be accepted by town meeting, or it could be something short of that. Article 15. So Article 15 is an article that was submitted by the town clerk. It states that clarifies the dates of town meeting. The town has historically held its town meeting the Monday preceding Labor Day, preceding Memorial Day. And you can see that there was some language in there that said it's to be held on the last Monday. And if you look at the calendar, sometimes the last Monday is Memorial Day. Well, what really motivated this article is this year the fall town meeting session would be held on October 31st. And so the thought would be that the Board of Selectmen should set the date of the fall town meeting in October or November after you decide so at a public hearing. So you sit down and you look at the calendar and you decide annually what the date of the fall town meeting should be. And that gives you some flexibility either early or late depending upon what you want. Article 16 is an article submitted by the Planning Board. And you'll remember that there was an article similar to this that was presented at the Springtown meeting and at the advice of town council was not acted on. But this bylaw is zoning bylaw, which requires a 2/3 vote, pertains to large-scale ground-mounted solar voltaic facilities, and this would restrict them to certain zones in town, and that's what this is all about, and I'm looking at it here. It would be prohibited, it would be allowed as a matter of right in districts, industrial 43 and industrial 130, and the town's refuse disposal district. So all other districts, ground-mounted solar, commercial solar voltaic facilities would not be allowed as a matter of right.
Hold, please.
If you want to flip to Article 17. So Article 17 is an article that I submitted, which is the town to appropriate a sum of money for additional dam inspection reports for the Peter Pond Dam and the Carpenter Pond Dam as required by the Department of Dam Safety. So we do need to determine a dollar amount, but we do need to do these projects. I don't really have a choice. Article 17?
Just a quick clarification, is the note in the last sentence meant to be part of the warrant?
No, it's meant to be for me.
Okay.
You like it?
Yep.
Me too. Article 18 is for the, an article submitted by the town clerk, and it is for the purposes of installing a new digital signboard for the Dudley Municipal Center. I would note that the Capital Improvement Planning Committee met earlier today, and they voted to defer action on almost all capital items, including this one, until fall town meeting, pending funding availability.
Hold, please.
Jonathan, was that a hold you
Yes,
requested?
please.
Article 19, the Dudley Charlton Regional School District had previously sent us a placeholder for a small capital exclusion for Shepherd Hill Regional High School. I've heard nothing further on it, but that's the only thing that I have to add. I don't believe it's got legs, but I also know that the school committee is meeting on Wednesday night and we'll get definitive action at that time.
I'd be more comfortable if we had a dollar figure.
It doesn't have one.
The good news, I'll wait. Let's put a hold on that just to talk about it.
Article 20 gives the town, it's an article submitted by the Board of Selectmen involving land acquisition. It gives the town the right to exercise Chapter 61A rights to purchase property totaling about 55 acres, and under Chapter 61A, notice has to be provided to the town. That notice has not been provided. However, I would note that the Capital Improvement Committee did consider this, and they decided that no action would be taken on this request at the time because the town has not, as of this date, received a Chapter 61A notice, and that precludes the Capital Improvement Planning Committee from taking action.
Regardless of that, I'm going to argue to keep that on the warrant.
Hold.
As will I.
As am I.
Let's put a hold. Go further.
So, Article 21 is an article submitted by the town clerk. It addresses the issue of residential animal kennels. And what it does is it provides that residential animal kennels are permitted in all of our zones, subject to a review and approval by the town's building inspector and animal control officer. The original way the article zoning bylaw is set up is these require actions before the zoning board of appeals. And that really is a cumbersome requirement for someone to go through because they have 4 dogs. So the thought is you put that authority in the animal inspector and the building inspector, and you allow it subject to those type of inspections. Article 22 submitted by the Water and Sewer Department, and it's to provide $55,000 from sewer retained earnings to purchase and install 2 generators at the Luther and Lakeview #1 pump stations. I understand that there are no generators in those locations.
Working generators.
No working generators in those locations. The Capital Improvement Committee did consider this, and they did vote to recommend Article 22. Article 23,
Hold on 21, just for further, little discussion.
21?
21, please.
23. Water and Sewer Department to provide the sum of $100,000 from sewer retained earnings to purchase 2 new pumps and motors for the Lakeview Avenue #1 pump station. And again, in conversations with the superintendent, water and sewer superintendent, is something that's needed. We need to replace this pump before it fails. And again, the Capital Improvement Committee did meet and voted to recommend funding for Article 23. Article 24, Water and Sewer Department, to see if the town will vote $800,000 from water retained earnings for the replacement of water line along Mill Street and Pine Street. The amount, again, is $800,000, and the Capital Improvement Committee does recommend funding for this article. Article 25.
One of the things that we'll want to do on that article is get a balance of what would be left in the account if all 3 of these are funded, and the average amount of money that is added to that account on a regular basis. So we'll see how far we're depleting it.
Yep.
Well, the first 2 are sewer articles, right, and the third one is water.
Right.
It should be 2 separate accounts.
Yep.
Water's got the bigger balance, though.
But,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the Capital Improvement Committee voted to move these forward. However, we do want to sit down with both water and sewer commissioners to get further definition of what these projects are going to entail.
Yeah, and could I add, Mr. Chairman? I'd like to add that, just to remind everybody that a hold doesn't mean it won't be in the warrant, and a hold or approval of an article being on the warrant doesn't mean that we as a board or you as a board would support it. It just means that we're okay with it going forward, and we can choose to oppose it on the floor if we have good reason and ask that it be tabled or that it be passed over.
It should be different.
There's a question
The first, that 061 should be.
I caught, that they got the 3 numbers, 3 same count numbers, those are wrong.
What article, Steve?
We agree.
2, 3, and 4, 22, 23, 20, you got the same account number, but it can't be because it's
Greg's
different.
he's gonna look into
2
that.
different
2 different departments.
systems.
We just gotta double check those account numbers.
Retained earning, 3901, 3901. It can't be for what reason, Steve?
Because I think one's sewer and one's water, separate retained earnings.
Okay.
Water main and
So
sewer.
it just looks like maybe a scribbly
Clarification on
error.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go back and check that. I know exactly what you're looking at.
Did everybody catch that?
Yep.
Okay.
That's why we get the big bucks. Big 0.
We're on 25, Greg?
Where are we? Okay, so that's how they were submitted. Michelle just pointed out that's how they were submitted. We'll go back and make a right.
Sure, it's just an error.
Yep. So, 25. Highway Department to appropriate the amount of $15,000 for removal of large, decaying, and dead trees in the Corbin Cemetery. And it's for $15,000.
Wish we had a lot more money to spend on those trees.
We can't get that taken down for less than that. Danny, where are you? If we bring in a commercial company that will use the wood for firewood or something?
The problem with that is you have to get a company in there with a winch as well as a bucket truck, because you can't just drop those limbs and trees. You're going to crush in some of these old headstones. We had a tree last year that was 96 inches across, and it cost $5,000 to get rid of that tree. The whole middle of the tree was split open. If it would have fell, it probably would have wiped out about 20 headstones, not to mention maybe if you were to build a ground school, if they happen to be cut.
Are these some of those old trees right in the center of the cemetery?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, some of the trees that aren't so much decayed, that'll still have some life in them. Like, a lot of the limbs are overhanging, quite a few of the heads.
So in some, you might take down the trees, and others, you might delimb them where
Yes.
needed?
And this 15,000
right?
was for to have the company to do everything. There's a possibility that we could give them a hand
Got him, got him.
on some of the trees, which would reduce the cost, but right now, this would be the cost to take care of all the problems.
Okay. I'm not a tree hugger, but I've been known to sidle up to one on occasion, just so you'll know.
That'd be his glory.
You got a bunch of them? Great. I don't need it right now, but we will need it at some
Are
point.
you on 27, Mr. Town Administrator?
No.
6.
No, 26. So 26 is an article submitted by the Highway Department for the purposes of a 6-foot rotary head mower for mowing the cap landfill area at a cost of $1,500. And it falls below the threshold for capital improvement. So it stands alone on
Are we still looking at the possibility of a solar array on the landfill?
Yeah, there's always that possibility. And as a matter of fact, even with that article, if it would have passed for
It would
the
help.
planning board, would actually limit it to those particular areas.
Right.
Okay.
And make that area much more valuable as an opportunity. So, Article 27.
Gotta be 1,500 profit there, right?
Waiting on a plan for Article 27, Greg?
A lot of questions about that one.
Yeah, I am. And I had previously met with the planning board and indicated that there were various street acceptances that needed to be acted upon. And those were Tobin Drive and associated roads and Nellie's Way. And those were the ones that I had, and I put them on the warrant pending receipt of a plan, which we have not received as of this date.
I know you spoke with the developer, he's aware of that.
He is aware of it.
Does that include, what's the other one up the back? Stebbins? So all the roads that are up there?
It's all of the ones. in
Tobin,
that
Nelly's, and
development.
Stebbins are behind
Is
it.
it Stebbins?
Stebbins, right.
So we will be more precise than et cetera?
If it shows up.
Okay.
We'll try.
We'll approve them all, Paul, right?
But I guess these are ones that have been pending and without a planner to kind of put this thing through. People had lost sight of it. I had a conversation with you, Mr. Chairman, to make sure that these get brought forward.
I've driven through there a few times to check it, and it's pretty good shape.
Right, but there were just some questions about
There's a
What-
few areas.
what the developer, when they did the final coat, what they actually did. It was, they had to clean the drains, which I was told was done
I don't know.
by the,
One, just from information point, a lot of those catch basins, all those catch basins over there were raised up about 2 inches above the current road level, or previous road level, for years. So nothing, no sand or anything got in there, including water. I don't have any information if those drainage pipes are pitched the right way, whether or not they work or not.
No, didn't Andelovich?
And according to the bylaw, all the information and all the documents are supposed to be submitted before the last business day in January of the previous year. The current year, excuse me. I don't know if that's been done.
Mr. Joseph.
Mr. Chairman, is the highway superintendent recommending that we pass this over if we don't have the documents that you say are needed?
I'm just saying what the bylaw says. I don't know if what documents came in. If they came in on time, I have no idea. But we, at the very least, if it's gonna move forward, we have to get maybe some help from the fire department or the developer to get some kind of a water truck over there to make sure that those drainage pipes pitch the right way. We don't wanna take the road over and find out 3 years later that everything's getting plugged up because the pipes aren't going the right direction.
So this may be a passover until, or unless we get the information we need, so that we're not inheriting, a problem.
Put a hold on it, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
So, Article 28 that you see is a blank There were 3 articles submitted by the police department, and they're not shown here, but let me allow an opportunity to summarize. There was a request from the police department for $1,000 to be transferred from their arrest warrant account to their overtime account. The second article submitted by the police department was to transfer $3,000 from the firearms services revolving account to the overtime account. Those are, I would consider to be routine in nature. In the time that I've been here, we've done that. And then there was a third article that had been submitted by the police department, which is creating a bylaw dealing with solicitors and people that conduct door-to-door solicitation. You don't have a copy of it in front of you, and so I'm going to read it. It says, the Dudley Police Department shall, as authorized by general laws, Chapter 101, conduct registration at the Dudley Police Department prior to any and all persons, firms, or corporations that offer for sale, solicit funds, or offer door-to-door services within the town of Dudley. Said registration shall consist of providing a valid government-issued photo identification for all canvassers, as well as an official document or identification from the firm, corporation, or organization they represent. All persons are subject to a criminal record check. Individuals who otherwise may be disqualified for not being of good moral repute as to a morals and integrity, such as in cases of issues of hawkers or peddlers under Chapter 101 of the general laws, may be temporarily prohibited from canvassing in the town by the chief of police or his designee. Those persons denied permission may appeal the chief's decision to the Board of Selectmen. Canvassing shall be done during daylight hours only, provided nevertheless the above requirement shall not apply to any political, charitable, or religious organizations duly chartered under the laws of the states or under the federal government, nor shall they apply to persons running for political office.
Okay, that was more.
So what this really does is in a number of communities, the people that go out and conduct door-to-door solicitations need to be of the proper character and integrity to conduct that type of operation. My office and the chief of police receive a tremendous number of phone calls over the course of the week from residents who don't understand why the town can't control the number of people that are going door to door. And its worst case, people that go to door may be engaging in criminal activity. They may be there for the purposes of seeing whether there are valuables in the home and such, as to why the chief has submitted a bylaw. Chief, if there's any further on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it, because I think one of the problems we've had with some of the energy solicitors for solar and everything else like that, and
All over my neighborhood.
when you find out about some of the people, they have some real questionable backgrounds, some individuals. They're going door to door to homes in the town. So this just allows us to check individuals, make sure they're certainly, there's no issues with them there, and then they're allowed to go door to door. We also know who they are, so if somebody calls and says there's a person in my neighborhood doing X, we'll have record of who the person is. So I guess that's the main thing. We left in there a provision, so if somebody is denied it, they can appeal it to the Board of Selectmen to come up and be allowed to go and solicit if that's the case. And so I think the main thing is just more or less to kind of put some teeth to what we already want people to do as far as registering. And we've exempted the normal ones according to the law as far as political, religious organizations and such. And I've worded it in such a way where if a person wants a hawker and peddler license in the state, so if they want to sell things on a street corner, they have to apply for hawkers and peddlers license, and they have to have that signed off by their local police chief. So that's what I included in there, was if a person doesn't have one of those licenses, they're basically going to meet the same criteria as any citizen would that's applying for one of these licenses. So that's in essence what it means.
Mr. Chairman? Yep. I have two questions, neither of which I think requires a hold. Chief, at the very end, the last paragraph, it says for each offense, is an offense when they are caught just simply out without having gotten approval, or does an offense occur each time they go to a house?
I think it would be when they're caught without approval.
Okay. And my second question, Mr. Chairman, is really for the town administrator. You've got two articles that could be, Article 1 and 2, that could be lumped together in a single article, with a couple of A-B subsections, but Article 3, the bylaw, would need to be its own article. How do you propose placing these 3 items into the warrant? Would you, for example, put Article 3, a new proposed bylaw, as Article 28, and make the 2 police articles either part of another article or their own separate, like Article 29 or something, whatever?
In the past, we've taken separate votes when this, they could be combined in answer to your question in interest of streamlining it. And we probably could move it up into the warrant because it deals with a current year obligation. And it makes sense to move all your current year obligations to the front of the warrant.
Okay,
So these could go forward and be combined.
that's Article 1 and 2.
Yes,
And Article 3 could slide into the Article 28 slot?
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just ask for a hold on Article 28, just for further clarification.
And that's the solicitor's bylaw.
Correct.
Article 29, this is an article that's submitted by petition, and it's called the Dudley Right to Farm Bylaw. And there are a number of cities and towns throughout the state that have a right to farm bylaw. And I won't comment on it because I don't know anything about it.
Or do I? Any of the petitioners present? Want to explain it? Nope. All right. Board's pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody see the article on a very similar issue that was in this morning's Telegram? Okay, you may want to read that also.
The reason for putting this in.
And then there's one last article. And it's changing the zoning bylaw. It's a petition article. And you don't have a copy of it. I'll make you a copy of it. When we start discussion on the other articles, Michelle will make a copy for everyone. It's zoning bylaws regulating development of new cemeteries in town. And the intent of the bylaw is to provide standards for the placement, design, construction, or operations of new cemeteries that address public safety, conserve health, protect public water supplies, and minimize impacts on scenic, natural, and historical resources. So, again, it was submitted by petition, and as a result of the fact that it is a zoning article, it will require an action on the planning board.
Require what, Greg?
Action.
Before it goes on the warrant?
It goes on the warrant, but to be voted at town meeting, the planning board must make a recommendation.
Oh, recommendation.
And I know that they have a public hearing that's coming up to deal with any and all zoning articles.
Would that petition article not apply to any previous or current applications that were filed prior to
Those
the
are
adoption of the
considered to be
bylaw?
grandfathered. So any request that's submitted prior to the enactment or the posting of a warrant, zoning bylaws are considered to be grandfathered. If a new cemetery was proposed 3 years from now and this bylaw are in effect, then it'd be subject to the new rules and regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to be sure, people know.
We need a hold.
Mr. Administrator, because both of those are petition articles of 10 people or more, it automatically has to go on the warrant.
It does, including any typographical errors that may
Okay.
be with it, so don't blame us.
Thank you.
You are correct, Mr. Fox. We have no choice on those.
I would hope, Mr. Chairman, that the Board of Selectmen brings in the petitioners on any petition article that arises outside of the town staff or municipal center, so that we can make, and I would hope that maybe the FAA can join us on those occasions, so that we can make an informed decision as to whether or not we would support a petition article or not.
Well, I don't think we can make them come in, right? We
We
can,
haven't done that in the past.
We can ask.
we can ask. I don't know if we
But
can,
otherwise, what do we have to go
This is
on?
like a proposing bylaws and
Close.
stuff. I'd like to,
I agree, but
Yeah.
there's been other times petitioners have been present, haven't got up and defended their articles.
There's nothing wrong with doing it, whether we've done it in the past or not. If it's the right thing to do, it's still the right thing to do.
I agree.
If it ain't, it ain't.
Mr. Chairman, I gotta say that just looking through this is the first warrant I've seen since I've been a selectman that we didn't have historical committee on here because it's gonna be in the budget. Right, Mike?
I must have missed that. I was, you almost had my hopes up for a second there.
I bet Mike
Other
catches
than
it.
Do we want to, this meeting is to review it. This meeting is not for our votes to approve, support, or oppose. Is that
Right,
correct?
We have a special meeting on the 5th, which is next Thursday, for the purpose of actually approving the warrant. So if there's something you want to nix or change, this is probably as good of opportunity as any to do that.
All right, Mr. Chairman, could I suggest that we ask anyone who put a hold on any article to communicate to the town administrator the reason for the hold, and for him to include that in his research and providing answers when we do review it.
John Massey.
Mr. Chairman, Greg, I had a hold on the one from the assessor. You can take that off. It was just a quick question. I thought we had already budgeted, we budget for that every year.
Yeah, we voted money in the fall for the purposes of property
I'm sorry.
certification, but I guess it's a reoccurring expense every year.
So it has to go on there?
It
Okay.
has to go on, but it doesn't have to go on this time either. We can leave it on there because the assessors have asked for it, and it's important to let people know, but the chances are we just don't have money for it.
Okay, all right, you can take it off. It was just a question.
Mr. Chairman, will the FAA be meeting with us at that meeting, or will they meet separately beforehand or at another time to develop their own yea or nay?
Gentlemen, ma'am?
Same or different? What do we think?
I thought it was
So, we can decide as a group. Same?
Meeting? It's worked well in the
Can't make it
past.
on Saturday. Same? Do you mind having some company?
That makes sense, I just want to know what you all want to do.
I think it makes sense to have us all together, that way we can do it together.
13 and a half heads are better than one. Or even 12.
I'm a little more than a half, come on, Paul.
Okay.
So that would be on the 5th.
Next Thursday.
Make it Cinco de Mayo.
Yep. Give Michelle, that's her hand
What time on May 5th? ZBA is meeting at 7 PM.
up. We can meet down the hallway.
No, that's the same
We
day.
want to be at that meeting.
You absolutely want to be at that meeting.
Could we meet,
We could meet on a different day.
it's a tough week coming up.
We could meet on a different day.
When's the town meeting? May?
Yeah, we
We have to post the warrant by the
Oh, yeah.
which means we can't sign it on the 9th, unfortunately.
So it's gonna be done
I could
before
do the previous night,
Which night?
I
Is it
can't
the
do-
Wednesday?
after the 5th.
What's the Tuesday?
Third.
That would work better for me. Mike?
Yeah, that's not bad. How you
So
guys?
we have a running list of the holds on here, so we don't have to
I
go through
did.
this agony
Yeah.
again?
I did. I kept a running list,
They're
but,
just questions.
so we'll do the 3rd at
Tuesday the 3rd?
Actually, better
what time?
for us.
To
Tuesday
6
the
or
3rd is
6:30 better?
6 or 6:30?
6:30 is not.
6:30
better,
has to work.
so no one gets a speeding ticket?
Okay.
One more
You know,
question.
Chief got a grant, we gotta crack him down.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard.
Sorry, no offense. No offense. Are we going to invite the petitioners to that?
That would make sense.
At least a representative.
Yeah, I'd
I
like
just had a
that.
couple questions.
6:30.
Through the chair. Michelle, can you send an email out to everybody? Yeah, thanks. Put it on the calendar.
So the holds that we had were Article number 4, tax title revolving fund. Sum of $75,000.
If you want to know my objection, not my objection, but my concern, in the past, by vote of the Board of Selectmen, that money was split between capital purchases and stabilization.
Yep.
I want to know if that 75,000 per year, all one time, and will it be deducted from what normally went into those two purposes? And because over the years, we've generated, I think, just under or just over $500,000, which we've added into capitalization and stabilization to help keep our tax rate down and to make our budget manageable. And to pull a $75,000 chunk, I'd like to know why we need so much money.
It should, in theory, result in more tax title collections. Because what happens is, without the legal expertise, you can only go after what we call the low-hanging fruit. This allows us the ability to get some of the stickier accounts that require more legal research and legal work, and actually take action to foreclose on those which people will want to avoid, and they technically will want to make payments on. So in theory, it's supposed to provide more money for the town by using it to be able to have legal services to get the money.
Number one, that's a good theory, and it makes sense. Number two, I need to see why it's $75,000.
Okay.
And I'd like to see it, if it does get approved, make sure that that money goes into a separate account only from the proceeds of tax title property sales, that it's not an appropriation.
Article 5 was held, unpaid bills of a prior year.
Jay, that was John.
My question there is quick and simple. Are we dealing with that, like, with a are we dealing with that tax credit debacle that we just when you came into office? And then we had to reconcile the tax credits with the bill that was the energy credits with the...
No. That debacle was done with.
Okay, all right.
We've resolved that
I
issue.
just want to make sure we didn't pay it before.
No, we've resolved that issue.
Okay, that vote is allowed.
The next article that was held would have been number 8, and that was the one that John had mentioned.
He withdrew his whole.
Yeah, I went through the whole, you answered my question, Greg. It was just, I was doing, usually that comes up during the budgeting process.
Article 16,
Wait,
zoning bylaw amendment, large-scale ground-mounted solar voltaic installation zoning bylaw amendment.
Rick, my simple question is, why would we restrict it from an LI district? You can do an industrial 43, why would we restrict it from LI 43 and LI 87? That's all. Seems to me that'd be a perfect place for it.
Yeah, I know that this article came up at the Springtown meeting, but what was missing was the second piece of the article that dealt with the use districts and all of the other items that were there. My guess is quality of life issue and I'm not going to speak for the planning board, but from what I understand, the concern is it's going to take up industrial land, valuable, potentially tax-paying industrial land. And in terms of it being prohibited in residential zones, it becomes a quality of life issue.
Oh, I have no question with the res. I mean, if we're gonna let it go in an industrial zone, we should let it be in the light industrial zone too.
I have to do some research on this because I'm cautious about how many restrictions we put on it. And are we cutting off our nose to spite our face? And the answer is, I don't know the answer. I need to really look at this closely and talk with someone who understands the language and tell me in real world terms what the changes mean.
Okay, that's my only question.
So the next,
Steve, if you hadn't put a hold on that, I was gonna.
next article that was held was Article 18, Town Clerk, electronic message sign for the municipal center.
That was JJ.
Yeah, this is a quick one. I wanted to see if the fire chief can get us a grant for that, like he got for himself.
Which one?
if we could work a little harder on a grant for Article 18 between now and the fall town meeting, which I believe it's gonna be passed over until then.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Article 18 is for a signboard,
Signboard.
Yeah.
Electronic.
electronic signboard. It's gonna be held over to the fall town meeting. It'll appear on this, so I was hoping that you and the town administrator could maybe see if there are any grants available.
Yeah, I can,
And maybe talk to the library director as well, because
I can look,
wasn't yours paid for by a grant as well? Your signboard?
Yes, it was paid for with the Crawford Endowment.
Okay, all right.
yeah, that's particular to
Can we make
libraries.
sure that we've looked thoroughly at that? And-
I'm already looking into it.
Okay.
I had mentioned it at the last meeting. I don't know if there's anything out there, but I can try.
All right. So that will,
I'll find something.
I know. Not on wheels, though. Class it up a little.
But that one on wheels certainly is catchy, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Next article that was held was Article 19, and that was the placeholder for potential small capital exclusion to benefit the schools.
You know what, I think you know the question on that one.
I do.
And source of funding, they're taking it right out of our pocket.
So that can remain a hold, I would assume.
Yeah, I would keep that one on. Telegram, know what that is?
What's that?
Okay. Debbie goes to all those meetings.
Yeah, but this was a request that we had received, just that I put a note in here, we received an email request to say
Okay.
hold. It could be that the committee just, 19? 20 was the next hold?
Self-explanatory.
Yep.
I don't know why we want to hold on that.
And no,
On 20? Somebody said
oh,
hold.
the FAA one.
Someone said hold.
No, I think I said hold, but I'm over it.
Yeah, get rid of it. Just cross out. 21.
21.
Jay, that was you.
So this is the dog kennels, residential.
That I want to remain hold. I need further clarification. I think that maybe we may be streamlining this a bit too much, and we need a check and balance as to who's the final authority, and everybody, if there are abutters and if there are hearings that need to be held, it may be worth it for something like a dog kennel. I mean, that seems to be right in the wheelhouse of the ZBA to me, as opposed to the building inspector. I just want to make sure that we're not
Being too restrictive.
removing due process where it should exist.
Thank you. Article 27, acceptance of Tobin Drive, Nelly's Way, and Stebbins. Don't know who held that.
That's the one that,
Stebbins, Nelly, and Tobin?
my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, you recall? John, did you have a hold on it too?
No, all I had was a question.
Okay.
I mean, my question through the chair is, oh, no, that was a different one. That'll be the next one, the solicitor's bylaw. I had a question on it.
We wanted to ask the highway superintendent to make sure he had all the proper
The paperwork is
documentations
in
and so forth.
to ensure that we don't get stuck with something that's going to cost us money to fix.
And further, if there's a bylaw already covering it and we're not following the bylaw, it's going to be an invalid vote anyway, so let's make sure it's, if we have a bylaw that already covers the acceptance of roads and we're not in compliance with that bylaw, it's out of order, I would imagine, at a town meeting.
So, but if the planning board is going to put it on the warrant to bring it forward, wouldn't that mean tacit acceptance of it already? They're saying they're gonna, should be approved?
I don't know, that's why there's a hold on it.
Mr. Chairman?
More research.
Real simple. If the paperwork is in, and prior to the meeting, Fire and Highway tell us it's okay to accept those roads as they are, then I personally will support it. If they tell us the paperwork is not in, or the roads are not in an acceptable manner, then I'll be the first to move that we pass it over. And if that means we wait till November or the following May, fine. All right? I mean, we're not going to accept something that's going to cost us money that shouldn't cost us money. That's an easy one.
Right.
So you will hear more about this, we'll leave the hold on it, we'll hear more about it at the next meeting. Because Danny will have more information by then.
So if I could, who's looking for the paperwork being filed on time? Because he's not aware of the paperwork now.
That all goes through the planning board. They're supposed to have documentation of all of that stuff.
Right, but Dan and the fire chief, Dean, need to have the paperwork to make sure that they comply with what we will accept and that the water flows through in case of an emergency and the fire department has to go up there and have access.
Right, so the
But that'll
planning
come
board will
from-
get
that'll
him
come
that
from planning
information
board.
prior to,
Right.
was my question, okay.
So I agree with Mr. Joseph about if everything is in order, absolutely I want to get it approved. But I also don't want to be in a situation a year from now where someone comes back to town meeting, back before the planning board, says, well, they let it go the last time, and they didn't have the paperwork on time, they didn't have
Good
this,
point.
they didn't have that, because this is the exact same road we're traveling down right now. So I don't want to be I just want to make sure we're in compliance with what we're supposed to be doing, and we can articulate that. Because we know it's coming a year from now, somebody else will come out and ask for the same sort of, kind of following the bylaw, but not really type thing.
So with a new betterment bylaw and with a common sense precedent in place, we should be okay for any future requests.
Could be.
You think so, Sully? Maybe, maybe not, huh?
We'll see.
See how it's written up.
All right, and then I asked, I'll just keep going, Mr. Chairman, if that's all right, because I held the next one.
Yes.
I waited for you tonight.
I have one question too.
I'm sorry.
On this one. Go ahead. you go.
This was the registering at the police department bylaw. The one thing I heard from that chief was that nonprofits would be exempt from being checked or having to check in. Did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, I think there's a provision for any groups that are authorized by the state, either religious groups, it's exempt
So it's a
exempt
state
political
law.
candidates, yeah, stuff like the Boy Scouts, those types of things. Although we'd encourage them to at least register and say, hey, we'll be in such and such a neighborhood with, this vehicle, so that there's no, problems or anything like that, or we know where people are. That by state law, it's my understanding that those groups are free to be able to take that action.
So, because what sprung to my mind when I heard that was those upstanding citizens who were trying to solicit for donations for Trooper Clarity's family, and it was a big scam.
Yeah.
Is there any way to, how do you remedy that?
Well, I think those individuals, I think, aren't working as part of a licensed organization or an approved organization, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of them might have to register with the town clerk. So that could be something we could remedy, that they have to be registered with the town clerk. But we can look into definitely those breakdowns of what those organizations are. I think the biggest thing is we want to get something that's on that's a bylaw that covers these things, because we've had a couple of experiences with some less than savory individuals that were going out and taking some action. So we wanted to have something that's there, we can say no, and at least give the people to an appeal process to come forward and come before this board and say, hey, we should be able to do this because, and at least it gives them some options.
Are you suggesting, John, that we might want to rethink the issue of charitable because it says solicit funds? If that solicit funds were left in there and the charitable met stricter requirements, would that meet what you're talking about?
I believe so. I want to make sure that,
Okay.
if we're in compliance, is it a state law that they can't be approached at all?
That's where I'm still have to get some clarification on as far as what's their approved group, but that was one of the things where they don't want to discourage like the Boy Scouts from going around collecting bottles and cans or whatever it is, or the usual things that are happening like that. Or people that are licensed, through as like a hawker peddler and those types of things would be exempted because they would meet that criteria. So that is something I can look into as far as what's that breakdown of those people. I can have that information for the town meeting if we need it.
We will hold on it and talk to people.
Okay, how do we know these religious people that are knocking on the door are legit?
Well, again, that's one of the things, same thing like political candidates.
Yeah,
could
I don't
come in
know-
and say,
I
hey, I'm
haven't
running
had
for
any-
office. But really, it's one of those things, I'm running for whatever it is.
Yeah, I haven't
and
had
go
any
knocking on
ever
doors.
come to my door asking for money. They only want my soul. You know, so. I
I've already
mean,
sold that a
they're
while
out
ago,
there
so it wouldn't matter.
Maybe better off with the money.
They rejected your soul.
Better off with the money.
My question was, are other towns, or have other towns in the area done that?
Yes, in fact, what I had done was I was looking around, and this was from another community, in essence, from another community. It was either Reading or Reading, somewhere around there. But it was copied from them. Because one thing is, some of the communities, like Webster, for example, require people to go get licenses. And so that's one thing, we don't want to put a, burden another department or something to have to issue a license and do all these other things before somebody goes out and does it. It's a kind of a complex thing. So we want to make sure there's some kind of checks and balances in place where people are registering and have to let you know who they are and that we know that they're at least legitimate, number one. And number two, when we get calls about, hey, there's a strange vehicle in my neighborhood and somebody's knocking on the doors, at least we have some background information on who the people are and what they're working for and that whatever they're doing is legitimate business. So I think we could probably put something in that we strongly encourage, or we do something else with these other groups as far as that's there, or whatever else might be.
The chief to tweak the language?
Yep.
Sure.
I'm fine with that. All right, thank you very much.
Chief.
Cool.
All right. We meet again?
Is that going to be on that Tuesday?
Third.
Yeah, we'll approve it.
It is on that Thursday?
Yep,
No, Tuesday, the third. Michelle's gonna send out an email.
Tuesday the 3rd.
You guys said Tuesday, didn't you? Tuesday.
Yeah, 3rd.
Okay.
All set?
All set.
Budget now.
Budget.
Adjourn your meeting?
Oh, we're gonna do
Budget,
budget.
budget.
Hold on again. Budget review.
Budget.
So much for a fast meeting.
Budget.
Whoever thought this was a great idea?
Budget.
So we all agree that Peter Fox will chair that group?
I decline.
You know what group it is. It'll be a fun group.
So, summary on the budget. Michelle, could you make sure the copy of this goes to the FAA members? But I want to hand this out, because I think this is important, and just hand one out to the board members too. Just this one piece.
Is this informational?
Yeah, this is informational. And we received an update from the schools today, and I apologize it wasn't in your packet. And the second piece, Michelle, is this. Can we, Dave, you need a copy if you need, you're gonna have to run off an extra, there's, so we got a full house tonight.
Is this the school one?
Is this different than the one we have on the front of our
I got one.
budget packet?
This is the most current one, I think.
And then, I'll pass this down to the board, so,
Did they come in, I have one question. Did they come in at 2.5% increase?
no, sir.
What'd they come in at?
I think the number I calculated it up with our assessment, the assessment is unlinked from the percentage increase in their budget.
It's based on enrollment.
It's based on a lot of different things, but when they say their budget is going up, and I'm just gonna throw a number out and say 4%, that doesn't necessarily translate to a 4% budget increase for Dudley. In our case, the latest budget that you see that's coming, that I'm handing out to you, take out this sheet of paper that looks like this. So this is what came today. Turn it over. You have Dudley Charlton Regional School District Summary 2016-2017. And if you go down to the assessments, 2 towns, everyone see that? Charlton, Dudley. So see the number 6,982,715? Does everyone see that number? That's what we're paying this fiscal year. The budget that was voted by the school committee at their last meeting on April 13th, which goes with the front sheet, the school committee approved a budget that translates to Dudley and increased the assessment to $7,582,102. That's an increase of $500 and almost $600,000,
What's that percent increase?
about 8%.
And do you know why it's gone up that much?
I will say this, I had a conversation with the school administration today. The school committee is meeting this week, and I expect this number to be modified. I don't expect it to go up, I expect it to go down as a result of the meeting that they have on
By
Wednesday.
5.5%?
I wish, but I can tell you that that $600,000 increase, we don't have money to fund that.
Do we know if that increase, how much of that reflects the formula?
I do. The minimum assessment increase is, minimum required contribution increase is $329,568.
And do we know what percentage of the budget that represents? Ish? 600 is how much? 8%?
The minimum increase is going up by 6.4%.
That's...
It's called minimum required contribution.
So that's the 329 that you
That's
just...
the 329,568.
Okay, so when I said the formula, what I really meant to say was, did I say it?
Go ahead.
The amount we're mandated to pay that exceeds our ability to raise the revenue to meet that mandated payment.
Is that an unfunded mandate, Jay?
Did I say? That's what I meant to say.
So that number, as you know, is uncoupled from our ability to pay.
Could we
But it's 329,568.
Could we have someone come in on the 3rd and explain to us how they arrive at the additional costs to the town of Dudley, so we understand it? Not so we like it, but so that we understand it?
The additional cost being the above 6.4%?
No, the additional cost that exceeds 2.5%.
So what I can tell you through the chair is that that formula is formulated by the state, so nobody from the school will be able to answer that question without help from the state.
Is this still based on that, quote, cockamamie formula, end quote?
Well,
Because I thought they were fixing that.
no, what they did was they had a report that said that's broken.
Need to fix it.
Right.
They haven't done
It has to
anything.
be fixed.
Anything.
So they spent a couple of years determining it was broken and didn't fix it?
Yep.
Well, they did fix it through the chair. We heard from a couple of our, we heard from the senator from the Charlton area, and we heard from our own state rep at one of the budget meetings that the school held, and they're going to figure out what's going to hurt the municipalities the least in order to fund the fix that is hurting us the most.
And they're going to do this by what year?
17 years from now is the overall plan. Or was it 11?
I think if we get that information from the schools, that this is what's mandated minimally, this is the dollar increase, then we should do one of two things. Send a letter to the state and tell them to go pound sand, we don't have the money. Or two, ask them for an interest-free loan with no repayment date.
Excuse me.
You know, if you don't have the money and they're mandating that we have to do it, still adhering to that cockamamie formula, then tell them to help us and come up with the money.
If they, well,
They even respond.
Mr. Chairman, we know that if they stopped offering local aid to wealthy cities and towns that don't require local aid, they could fix this very easily. But then they wouldn't have politically the votes in order to.
Hey, a formula's a formula. Let me know. That's how mankind advances, with scientific formulas.
Now, before Mr. Marcy needs any more oxygen. He's all ready to jump out of his skin. Sorry.
Go get him, John.
No,
Peter Fox.
Mr.
I saved that for
Administrator,
last week.
would it be appropriate for me to make my comments?
Let me just present one more piece.
Sure. And then, would it be appropriate time for me to make my
Yes.
comments? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
This other piece of paper that I handed out, it's got something that, with all types of arrows and boxes on the front. It's our document, internal document. Turn over to the page that says Appendix X, Article X, Appendix A, bottom line budget fiscal year 2017.
All right, where are we?
This one, right here.
Okay.
Everyone got it?
Yep.
So if you look at all of these numbers, and you hone in on something called total general fund budget, it's about halfway down. You're gonna see three numbers. You're gonna see the current year budget, $7,446,216. You're gonna see the departmental requests of $7,759,264. That's what your department heads tell you they need. And what is being recommended is about $70,000 less than the current fiscal year. $7,375,882.
It's worse than level funding. isn't
So
it?
we're down. And if you go down to the next little batch of boxes and skip down, you'll see schools. And what I've done is I've taken the opportunity to show the latest number that the school committee has requested of $7,582,102. And what I've done is I've dropped in the state minimum required contribution. So it's minimum contribution plus transportation plus capital constitutes $7,270,694. That's about as low as we can go. But there is something that gets factored in here that we have absolutely no control over. And that's the loss of revenue on the school side. So if the schools generate less revenue through their budget offsets, let's say, that loss in revenue translates to a higher assessment for Dudley and Charlton. And we have no control over that. So for example, and I'm going to just throw this out there, if they say they're going to bring in $500,000 less in school choice, and I'm just throwing out a number, that number comes to us, and we're obligated to pay that revenue shortfall that they have in other areas, and that translates into a higher assessment. That's how you end up with an 8% budget increase on a budget that doesn't go up by 8%. Because there are other costs that trickle down to us, and Dudley and Charlton are forced to pay those additional costs. So if they're using less of their excess deficiency fund, or they are getting less in terms of user fees, or whatever it is, if they've decided that if those amounts are lower, or there's less state aid, let's say as an example, then those costs, the makeup of those costs comes to Dudley and Charlton. And that's how you end up with a budget, an 8% budget that's representative of a budget that the schools say is only going up by half of that amount, let's say. And that's how you end up with it. So I just want everyone to be clear that that's how you got this. So the difference between those two numbers, the 7,582,102, which is the school committee current request, and the minimum required contribution is about $311,000, $311,405. That's the number that we hope the school committee on Wednesday night will work on. Thank you.
Don't their numbers show lower enrollment?
There is less enrollment.
Lower grades are less. Mr. Fox?
There was an article in the paper that has attributed to my blood pressure going up about 100%. What Mr. Sullivan just said is absolutely true. The Dudley School enrollment has been going down. So in theory, their budget should be going down because they have less Dudley children in the school system. Last year, the Dudley Charlton school system filled, through school choice, 44 slots in the school system. This year, they're proposing an additional 41 slots in the school system. The school system receives $5,000 for every child that they take from another community. The cost of educating those children is $11,000. So the taxpayer is stuck making up the difference of $6,000 per student. For the time that student comes in, and the school system is now taking kids in at the elementary school level, that we have to pay that until those children graduate. The money that the schools receive from school choice, they get to keep. The towns make up the difference. They don't share any of that with the municipal side. Police department doesn't receive anything from that, the fire and the highways. And yet, they want us to worry about school size in their classes. Oh, we have 25 children in each class. Well, if you're going to fill the school up every single year with 40 kids, 44 kids per year, my suggestion is don't come to us next year and say you need 5 more teachers. They're gaining financially. They're not reducing enrollment by any means, and they're tacking on the $6,000 burden per child for whatever number of years that those children are in the school system onto the towns. I think that is outrageous. I think it's totally unfair. That is not even counting the 3 kids that we have to send to the schools like the Norfolk school system at $40,000 each. It is just totally unfair. I know they've had their own disagreements within their school committee, but I think it's way out of line. They're using school choice to generate money for themselves, and they're hurting the balance of the $6,000 per student to the towns. It's just absolutely wrong, and yep, I am mad, I'm unhappy. I've attended every joint school committee meeting with Dudley and Charlton. Not one person said that they were going to do this, that they were going to add another 41 kids to the enrollment. 20 are graduating from the senior class this year at Shepherd Hill, but they're going to refill those 20 plus add more. That is absolutely wrong. So I personally am not going to vote for this school budget, period.
If I could, just a question. Is any of that or the revenue shortcomings controllable from the municipal side?
No.
If you go to town meeting and their budget's not approved, they have the right to call another town meeting. If it's not approved, I think the next step is they get to call a joint town meeting. Is it 2 or 3 that they,
There's certain timeframes that you have to act within also.
right, but they can call a second town meeting. If it doesn't pass, if they call a third, then it goes to a joint meeting where Charlton and Dudley get together and vote on Dudley's budget.
And if you fail to act, it's deemed approved.
Right. Yeah, failure to act is an automatic approval.
So I do know that the Chapter 70 numbers were not great out of the gate, but I know that the most recent numbers that came out 2 weeks ago from the House Ways and Means Committee was substantially improved. Now, I do know in conversations with the school administration, those numbers haven't been put into this budget proposal yet. It's possible that they will be, and that will then lower Dudley and Charlton's assessment.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that would be great. Yet, that has nothing to do with Peter's contention, and I want to make sure I understand it and the people watching understand it. Peter, are you saying that they're going to add 41 more in addition to the people already in the schools on school choice, and that's going to cost Dudley and Charlton just under $250,000 to fund those additional 41 seats?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how the article reads in the Telegram.
I just want to be sure that's the case.
I would question,
Sorry?
Is that incorrect, Deb?
In a sense, but I do want to just give you one tidbit of information that just was posted on the newspaper tonight. And that is, the school committee took $1 million of their school choice reserves and used it to reduce the town assessments.
I'm going to need some help hearing that.
So the revenue that they received for school.
Not here, don't know.
They have taken $1 million of that revenue and applied it to their operating budget to reduce the town assessments.
Okay.
I don't understand that when you say that they reduced the town's assessment and then they come in and they ask for an 8% increase. If Dudley children, if enrollment is historically going down for Dudley kids, they should be reducing class sizes, not increasing class sizes. Even in the article that was in the paper, some members of the school committee admit that they are using that as a tool to generate revenue.
And the revenue is being applied to the operating budget and reducing the town.
But the more children you have in the school system, the more cost you have.
That's a big topic.
Well, okay, yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think what we're unclear about here is if it's an actual cost of $5,000 per student, is it a real cost? I mean, I can't imagine that the school superintendent would be using this as a tool to offset costs if he's passing on the cost anyway. It doesn't make sense to me. I think we're missing something here with getting $5,000 per student, but a cost of $11,000. I find it very difficult to believe that they're taking over 100% loss for every kid that they bring in, and somehow that makes sense.
Clarification is needed.
Clarification is absolutely.
Maybe the state, the wonderful state, can tell us how come we get $5,000 per student, but we got to pay $40,000 per student.
I mean, it's been for several years that we've been having this discussion about school choice, and it being somehow it ends up being a profitable venture, and I seem to remember it being $5,000 profit as opposed to a $6,000 loss, like it would seem to read in here. But I would definitely like further clarification on that, because this does not ring true to me at all, on any level.
Well, maybe, sorry, go ahead.
Also.
I was gonna say, maybe it would be beneficial to invite the business manager or superintendent in next week and.
Okay, but Selectman Ruder, how would you interpret that?
I would interpret it the same way you did, Mr. Fox,
Thank you.
but it doesn't make sense. And I can't, I have a hard time believing it.
And I understand that, but I've been attending these meetings for years, and nobody has given me an explanation yet, because I met privately with the business director as well as the superintendent about this subject, and I have yet to get my answer.
Okay.
Well, let's sit down and talk and ask the right questions and see what the answers are.
Mr. Ziganowicz.
Mr. Chairman, on this Dudley Charlton Regional School District Budget Summary dated April 15th, I notice under revenues, there's a line item here called reserves, and it says $1 million. If this is another $1 million coming out of reserves, I'd like to know about this reserve account that's got $2 million in it that can be put towards this budget in one calendar year. What's this reserve account? How much is in it?
I get a feeling it's gonna be the same million.
This sheet, the logo of the school district,
So that's the healthcare problem.
turn it to the back.
Right, but I get a feeling that's gonna be the same million.
Are they just getting extra mileage out of it, releasing it twice?
See, the difference is, at the end of the fiscal year, my understanding of the difference, if department heads have money left over, it goes back in the general fund. School department, at the end of the year, if they have money left over, they don't have to give it back. Bay Path historically, since I've been on the board, I think virtually every year has given money back to the towns.
I remember
They
seeing that.
choose to. My understanding of the Dudley Charlton Regional District is they don't have to, and they've never chosen to. So that's the monies they carry over into their one or two different reserve funds up there. They don't have to, nor do they choose to.
We should have discussions about that.
I think, Mr. Chairman, not to belabor it, but there is a certain amount of reserve, maybe to the tune of $1 million, because they're self-insured. And they have to have that kind of money,
I think
to
that's,
some degree.
right, I think that's one of the separate, like, trust funds that they
Yeah.
have. It's separate.
That's a good point, Joe.
Still, some answers I think would make this hurt less.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that was the answer given at a town meeting a few years back when somebody asked the former business manager, and he got up and he talked about percent, the budget that the state recommends, how much do they have in the reserves, and the question was, what did the town have at the time? I think we had $4,000 in our stabilization. The school was well over $1 million, and they took the 4. Because I remember we had to cut flags for the veterans at the Memorial Day parade, and somebody got up and wrote a check for the $1,000 on the spot for the flags.
Your shape.
Mr.
Truth.
Chairman, are we, through you to the town administrator, are we ready to move on with the regular agenda?
We are. Well, if
We're
everybody's,
going to adjourn then.
everybody's done with their questions.
Are we done? Are we done? Ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Somebody? We're adjourned.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you the third?
6:30 on
The third at 6:30?
Yeah.
Yeah.